operating into Arima, and it closed on the 20th of December, 1968. When I was a little boy, maybe 3-4 years old, I would spend my time watching the trains go by, and it was sort of there is where my passion for trains really began. Always wondering where were they going to, you know, who was driving, who the people that worked on the railway. I always wondered these things, seeing all the different passenger trains going by, cane trains, the oil trains and so on. And it sort of fueled my imagination, you know, it sparked an interest which has really been lifelong. The TGR was introduced while Trinidad was under British colonial rule. However, that was not the first railway in Trinidad. The first railway or tramway in Trinidad was built by William Eccles, and it ran on his laissez-faire estate, which was on the northern banks of the Sapero River, just south of San Fernando in the Naparimas. Before the coming of the railways and before you could take a steamer between Port of Spain and San Fernando, if you wanted to do that trip by land, it would sometimes take you 2 days, having to cross rivers, especially the time of year. If the weather was bad, it could even take longer. The railway was very important, you know, in establishing movement and communication between all the small districts and everything coming into Port of Spain. It also has to be remembered that the railways actually built all the roads. Because if you look at the railway coming out of Port of Spain, it went as far east as Sangre Grande. Okay, so that was the end of the line going east. Going south, the line got to San Fernando first of all, then it continued on to Siparia, so that was the southern extent. If you want to go to the central part of Trinidad, it eventually reached Rio Claro in the center of Trinidad. Those were the main lines, and then you had another branch line between Marabella Junction and Princestown. The first line into Arima was very successful. In fact, when the Arima line opened in 1876, they estimated that each inhabitant of Arima would ride the train 6.5 times per year. The objective was to go south, go through the industrial heart of Trinidad and Tobago, through all the sugar estates, all the sugar growing areas, get down to the south and have the second town of importance, San Fernando, as being on the railway map. And eventually everyone wanted a railway station in their town. And of course you can see today where the lines ran, because all the villages came up along the line. Most of the villages you see along the southern main line and into Tabaquite and so on all gained importance after the coming of the railway. There's not a lot left today in Trinidad because the railway, of course, was scrapped after 1968 and taken up in the 70s. For me, the most important thing is to preserve the locomotives that are still around. And I think that if we were able to restore all those engines cosmetically, then we could have something that is very important for the tourism of our country and something that's historic in its own right.
And that was the world television premiere of the documentary Remembering the Railway 50 Years On, produced by the National Trust. I'm so honored that this has been a year in existence. It's the first time it's on national TV. Oh. So interesting.
TTT has just arrived.
Ah, there you go. Thank you so much, Margaret McDowell Thompson, Chairman of the National Trust, and Glenn Beaton, who you saw on the video there, engineer and train enthusiast. Welcome to TTT. Welcome to the Now Studio.
Yes.
And congratulations on the production.
Oh, thank you.
Very compelling.
Yes.
Remembering the Railway, 50 years on. So you remember the railway and you remember it, but I don't have any memory of it whatsoever.
Yes.
So this is why it's important, right?
It's very important, but even more important, this is how Trinidad really got developed.
Yes.
Because, you know, apart from Port of Spain and so on, the way that all of the agriculture, and Glenn will tell you more about that, really came and was able to come to not just Port of Spain, also San Fernando, and several we discovered when we were traveling to Siparia, several of the rivers. Agricultural produce would get to the river and go down the river. And so we had all kinds of transport.
Yes. And the railway system was very important.
Extremely
in the
important.
development of the South especially.
Yes, and the East.
And the East as well.
Sangre Grande, yes.
So Glenn, what made you want to do, well, it says train enthusiast, but
Railway enthusiast.
Railway enthusiast.
That's right.
Okay, railway.
What's very important is that we are now in 2018, which is the 50th anniversary of the end of the Trinidad Government Railway. Now, after the railway ended on the 20th of December 1968, we continue with Caroni trains up until 1998. So it's now the 20th anniversary of the end of trains altogether in Trinidad.
Right.
Yes.
So this year we're sort of using it to commemorate the end of the government railway.
Yes.
And one of the lines that we are going to be focusing on next week is the line to Siparia, the Siparia Railway Extension, which was built in 1913. So we're going down there to celebrate that.
Do you remember, I know in the documentary you're saying that you You remember? How old would you have been about that
Well,
time?
I was 5 years old when the
Yeah.
train
And you
stopped.
remember?
Of course, yes. It left a stamp on me for life.
Yes.
And my interest was sparked from a very young age,
Yes.
Yes.
watching trains going in and out of San Fernando.
Yes.
Remember, trains didn't end until '68.
You're
So
right.
every time we came to Port of Spain, I was from San Fernando.
Ah.
We would
Yes.
see, we would cross Mova crossing right there,
Yeah.
and you'd see the trains crossing. So the train still ran until '68. So, I
So
remember
that
them very
song,
well.
Last Train to San Fernando,
Well-
holds special meaning for you or your parents,
Well,
maybe?
no, it is a special meaning for me, but it's become an anthem, really. It's got
Yes.
really nothing to do with the lines.
I heard so, yes.
Yeah.
Dominic
Yes.
Calvis had actually
Yes.
posted
Yeah.
about that.
That's
Yes,
right,
that's
yes,
right.
yeah.
So-
In fact, the last train came from Samoa.
Is
into
that
Port of
right?
Spain.
That's right,
Okay,
Yes,
there you
yes,
go, you
yes.
see.
Yes.
Tell us about what's happening to commemorate the 50th
Okay,
anniversary.
well, we decided to choose Siparia this year. Well, Glenn could choose anyone, but we decided to choose Siparia for a very important reason, and that is that Deltone Spaniard is sitting in the turnaround point of the Siparia extension. And we met a very interesting person, which I hope you'll meet next week, Mr. Akinola Senan, who is the everything of Deltones.
Yes.
He's the main well, everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Musical
And
composer.
musical
Yeah.
composer.
Yeah, he's coming on the
arranger.
show next week. Yeah.
Right, good. So he had a lot of information about the Siparia, almost heritage site. He wanted to make a heritage site out
Yeah.
of Siparia, that area.
Yes.
And he told a story. As a young person, he talked about the elders telling him that when the train arrived, people would come from far and near, all from the deep reaches of south with
Yeah.
all their agricultural produce.
Right.
And he wants to recreate that
nice.
event.
When is that happening?
Well, he is going to be doing it over and over every year.
Yeah.
It's called Kusame. and
Kusome.
Kusame.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you all about that next
Yes.
week.
Amalgamation.
So,
Yeah.
yes, right, which is trying to bring all the agricultural produce, the farm families, the craft, everything together.
To the
We did it
Deltone
last
Spaniard.
year, to the
Right.
Deltone Spaniard. So this year, we're almost helping to launch Kusame,
Right.
which will be in December,
And
which
that's
is
the
the real
National
time,
Trust.
the
Yeah.
National Trust. And so we decided we're going to choose this line. And we're going to be coming on the 20th of October, which is next week Saturday.
Yes.
We're going to be driving the route of the Siparia
Yeah. Yeah.
train
Yeah.
from Port of Spain, City Gate. It wasn't called City Gate then, it was
Yeah.
called Trinidad Government Railway Headquarters.
Right.
And we're going to go all the way down through San Fernando, behind the back. We
okay.
did it last week and it was absolutely
Yes.
amazing.
And you're
we're
doing
seeing
it
all
how?
kinds we're going in buses.
Right.
Which is
Okay,
the-
so the new
tour.
railway.
It's a tour,
The
yeah.
tour, yes, the new railway.
So we're
yeah.
going all the way down.
Yeah.
And then this is a two-in-one event because after we go all the way down, then when you get there, we're going to have an event by the Kusame people, the
Right,
Deltones.
they'll have it, yeah.
They're going to do an event, and then there's going to be a story of the history of the heritage, the new heritage site, we have to call it that, of Siparia. And then Glenn is going to talk about that particular railway.
Yes. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to continue this as a part 2
Yes.
next week,
Yes.
right, to find out more about it. The event is on the 20th, so we have a little
Right.
bit of time, but just to
Yes.
get your feet wet and to let you
Right.
know a bit about what's happening. 50
And
years of the
you
railway.
need to get your tickets now, though.
Get your
because-
tickets now.
Yes.
Right.
Every show we've done with Glenn has been totally sold out. And we only have 2 buses. So
People love the railway.
Yeah.
yes.
I love the railway.
Nostalgia.
Yes, absolutely. So Glenn Beedon,
Yep.
engineer and railway enthusiast.
Railway enthusiast, yes.
And
Yes.
Margaret McDowell Thompson, chairman of the National Trust. We continue
Yes.
to give the information to the public. And of
Yes.
course, you can call 622-4141 and get the information from Nono after the show. Thank you very much for joining
Yes,
us.
thank
I want to
you.
cross to Tobago now.